You made it past the first month. You found your neighborhood. You know which street food stall to go to. You figured out the traffic. You feel like you understand Vietnam now. And that feeling, that comfort, is exactly when things start going wrong. Because the mistakes that hurt foreigners the most in Vietnam are not the tourist mistakes. They're the ones that happen after the honeymoon phase is over. When you stop being careful. When you think you've already figured it out. This video covers 10 real mistakes that catch foreigners off guard, usually around month 2, 3, or 6. Some of these will cost you money. Some will create serious legal problems. And a few of them, most foreigners don't even know exist. Let's get into it. Number 1. Not having a real visa plan. This is the big one. And it's actually 4 mistakes rolled into one. The first is not knowing the details of your own visa. It sounds obvious, but a lot of foreigners don't know the difference between their visa expiry date and their permitted to stay until date. Those two dates are not always the same thing. One is when your visa was issued and expires as a document. The other is the actual date you must leave or extend. Confusing them has sent people to the immigration office in a panic. Or worse, to the airport, already in violation. The second part of this mistake is waiting too long to extend. Extensions in Vietnam take time to process. If you wait until the last week, you may not have enough time. And that means you're either overstaying or doing an emergency border run. The third part is trusting random advice from Facebook groups. Vietnam's immigration rules have changed significantly in the last 2 years. The e-visa was extended to 90 days in 2023. New regulations under the amended immigration law took effect. Decree 282 on overstay penalties came into force in December 2025. A lot of what's shared in expat groups is outdated, sometimes by years. People are still recommending visa strategies that no longer work. And the fourth part, the one most foreigners realize too late, is having no long-term plan at all. Living month to month, hoping each extension goes through, is not a strategy. It's a source of constant stress. If you're planning to stay in Vietnam for more than 3 or 4 months, sit down and figure out what visa path actually makes sense for your situation. Whether that's a DN visa, an LD visa, or something else. Know your options before you need them. Number 2. Overstaying, even by 1 day. This one deserves its own section because the consequences are serious. And they changed recently. Under Decree 282/2025, which took effect in December 2025, Vietnam doubled its maximum overstay fines to 40 million VND. That's roughly $1,500. The fine scale works like this. Less than 16 days over, 500,000 to 2 million VND. 16 to 30 days over, 5 to 10 million VND. More than 30 days, fines go up steeply. And deportation becomes a real possibility. And here's the part that surprises people the most. Even a very short overstay, 1 or 2 days, creates a permanent record on your passport. It shows up every time you apply for a visa anywhere in the world. For longer overstays, you risk being blacklisted from Vietnam for 1 to 5 years. And Vietnam now shares immigration data with other countries in the region. That means a blacklisting here can affect your ability to enter Thailand, Cambodia, and other ASEAN countries. The phrase, "I didn't know," is not accepted at the immigration counter. And "my visa agent told me it was fine" is also not accepted. Know your date. Set a reminder 2 weeks before. And if something goes wrong, a medical issue, an emergency, document everything immediately. Because that documentation can reduce your penalties. Number 3. Renting without understanding Tam Tru. Most foreigners who rent an apartment in Vietnam have never heard of Tam Tru. And that's a problem. Because it's a legal requirement. Tam Tru means temporary residence registration. Any foreigner staying in Vietnam is required by law to register their temporary residence with the local police. And it must happen within 24 hours of moving in. If you're in a hotel or a serviced apartment, the staff usually handles this automatically. But if you rent directly from a private landlord, it becomes your landlord's legal responsibility. And many landlords either don't know about it or quietly skip it. This matters for a few reasons. First, failure to register can affect your visa extension. Immigration officers sometimes check whether your registration is up to date. Second, your landlord can be fined up to 4 million VND if you stay at their property without proper registration. Real cases of this have been documented in Hanoi as recently as August 2025. Third, TAM-TRU affects other important things, like opening a bank account, applying for a work permit, and maintaining legal residency status. When you rent a place in Vietnam, don't just ask about the price and the deposit. Ask specifically, will you handle TAM-TRU registration for me? If they look confused, that's a red flag. Number 4, getting scammed after the tourist phase. Here's something most travel content doesn't talk about. The scams that target tourists are obvious. Inflated taxi fares, fake souvenirs, overpriced restaurants near the old quarter. Tourists fall for those because they don't know better yet. But foreigners who have been here a month or two fall for different scams, more sophisticated ones. The motorbike scam is one of the most common. You rent a bike for a month, you park it somewhere, it disappears. You call the rental shop. They're not surprised, because in some cases they GPS tracked the bike and had it taken. Now they're asking you to pay for a stolen bike you were riding legally. The deposit scam in housing is another one. You find a great apartment on Facebook or Zillow. The agent or landlord creates urgency. Someone else is looking at it tonight. They ask for a deposit to hold it. You transfer the money. They block you. According to a 2024 survey by Viet Rent, 37% of expats reported encountering some form of fraudulent rental arrangement. And then there are the foreigner price services, visa agents, legal consultants, relocation companies, charging 3 or 4 times the going rate. The rule is simple. Before you pay anything, verify. Check ownership documents. Use a trusted source. Ask in established expat communities. Never transfer a deposit without a signed written agreement. Number 5, not setting up a local bank account early. This one doesn't seem urgent in the first few weeks. You have your foreign card. It works at the ATMs. But then the fees start adding up. Transaction fees, currency conversion fees, ATM withdrawal limits. And then you try to pay rent. Or a landlord asks for a local transfer. Or you need to receive money. And suddenly your foreign card is useless. Opening a local bank account in Vietnam as a foreigner is straightforward, but only if you have the right documents. Most banks require a valid passport, a visa with at least a few months remaining, and proof of address, which comes back to your TAM-TRU registration. Tourist e-visas can sometimes complicate the process, depending on the bank. The banks most commonly recommended include Vietcombank, BIDV, and Techcombank. But requirements can vary by branch and by city. The key point is this: set this up in month 1, not month 3, because by month 3 you'll need it for something important. Number 6, working on the wrong visa. This is where things get legally serious. A Vietnam tourist visa, including the 90-day e-visa, does not authorize you to work. Not full-time, not freelance, not just a few clients. And Vietnam's definition of work is broader than most people realize. If you're receiving payment for services while physically in Vietnam, that can be considered working in Vietnam. For remote workers and digital nomads, this is a genuine gray area. But here's the risk. If immigration authorities question you and find evidence of professional work activity without a work permit, the consequences can include fines, visa cancellation, and deportation. Future visa applications can also be affected. The correct path for someone intending to work in Vietnam is either a DN visa or a proper work permit. If you're a remote worker or freelancer, speak to a legitimate visa consultant about your specific situation. Don't rely on the assumption that no one gets caught, because it is common, until it isn't. Number 7, ignoring health insurance. Most foreigners who skip health insurance are not being reckless. They're underestimating the cost when things go wrong. Vietnam's healthcare for routine visits is genuinely affordable. A basic consultation at a private clinic runs around $20 to $50. But a private hospital stay can cost several $100s per night. A surgery or an emergency evacuation can cost thousands. And here's something that surprises a lot of people. Foreigners are not covered by Vietnam's public health insurance system. You pay full rates at public hospitals. And some private hospitals require upfront payment or proof of insurance before treatment begins. International health insurance typically costs between $500 and $2,000 per year. That works out to roughly $40 to $170 per month. Compared to a single emergency without coverage, it's not even a question. Get insured early. And make sure your policy actually covers hospitals in Vietnam. Number 8. Not learning any Vietnamese. This is not a cultural lecture. This is about money and practicality. Foreigners who speak zero Vietnamese consistently pay more for the same things. Not always because locals are trying to cheat them, but because they default to tourist-priced options. You pay more for your motorbike repair. You pay more at the market. You miss the local restaurant on the side street. You can't negotiate rent. You don't need to be fluent. You need maybe 15 to 20 useful phrases. How to greet someone. How to ask the price. How to say too expensive. How to order food. How to ask for directions. That level of Vietnamese can save real money every month. And it changes how locals interact with you. Number 9. Living inside the expat bubble. Vietnam has very well-developed expat communities, especially in Ho Chi Minh City, Hanoi, and Da Nang. And those communities are genuinely useful. But a lot of foreigners never leave the bubble. They live in the same neighborhoods, use the same services, visit the same restaurants, and rely on the same Facebook groups. The result is a version of Vietnam that costs significantly more and feels much smaller than it actually is. Expat area rents in Thao Dien or Tay Ho are often double or triple what comparable apartments cost just a few kilometers away. Restaurants in expat-heavy streets are priced for people who don't ask questions. And because you're only talking to other foreigners, you get a distorted view of what's normal, what's legal, and what's possible. Step outside the bubble deliberately. It will make your life cheaper, richer, and more real. Number 10. Not having trusted local contacts before you need them. This is the mistake that almost no one talks about. And it's the one people feel most acutely when something goes wrong. When you're in a crisis, a visa problem, a landlord dispute, a medical situation, or a work permit issue, you do not have time to research. You need someone who already knows what they're doing. Most foreigners don't have that person. So they Google in a panic. They ask in Facebook groups. They click the first result that looks official, and they pay more for worse advice. The people who have the smoothest experience living in Vietnam long-term almost always built their network early. A reliable visa consultant, a good doctor, a trustworthy landlord, a legal contact. Build your network before you need it. It's one of the most underrated things you can do during your first 3 months in Vietnam. Vietnam is one of the best places in the world to live as a foreigner. Low cost of living, great food, warm people, fast internet, beautiful landscapes from north to south. None of the mistakes in this video are reasons to leave or to worry. They're simply things to know. The 3 most important takeaways: understand your visa situation fully and have a real plan. Register your temporary residence properly and make sure your landlord does it too. And don't work on a visa that doesn't allow it. Everything else in this video is manageable once you're aware of it. If you want help navigating visas, extensions, or long-term residency options in Vietnam, check the link in the description. And if this video saved you from making one of these mistakes, give it a like. It helps other foreigners find it before they learn the hard way. Subscribe for more practical guides on living and staying legal in Vietnam.